It started on an ordinary night that would soon change everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. In a quiet observatory built far away from the noise of any city, a group of astronomers were scanning deep space for cosmic signals. It was part of a global research project to map unknown radio waves from distant galaxies. Most of what they picked up was static, natural background noise that filled the dark emptiness of space. But that night something different appeared on their screens. At first it looked like a sharp pulse of light repeating in an exact pattern. One of the junior researchers leaned closer to his monitor, adjusting the filters and running it through the system again. The data confirmed it. The signal was not random. It carried structure, a rhythm, almost like a message. They double-checked their instruments, thinking it might be an echo from one of Earth's own satellites. But there was nothing in the database that matched the origin point. The signal was coming from far beyond the orbit of Pluto, from an empty region where no known object should be transmitting anything. Within an hour, the observatory's control room turned into a storm of activity. Scientists called their partners at other observatories around the world to verify the readings. Soon, confirmations began pouring in. The same signal was being detected across the planet. It wasn't a mistake. It was real. News of the strange transmission reached international space agencies within hours. At first, the public didn't know about it. The data was classified until experts could determine whether it was a natural phenomenon, an unknown cosmic event, or something else entirely. But as more observatories confirmed it, the excitement grew too big to contain. Within days, rumors began to spread online. People were asking the same question. Was this finally proof that humanity was not alone? In a conference room deep inside a government research facility, leading scientists gathered to analyze the data. The signal had a repeating pulse with precise timing, something no natural source had ever produced. The intervals between pulses seemed to follow mathematical ratios, simple ones like 1 to 2 and 1 to 3. It was the kind of pattern intelligent beings might use to show they understood numbers. Still, the scientists were cautious. Many past signals had turned out to be false alarms, satellite reflections, cosmic rays, even equipment interference. But this one was different. It moved slightly over time, as if coming from an object traveling slowly across the edge of the solar system. The world's major space agencies soon formed a joint task group to investigate. Their plan was ambitious. For decades, humanity had dreamed of sending a true deep space ship, something beyond the Moon or Mars. That dream was about to become reality, but for a reason no one had ever expected. The Terran Defense Command, originally established to protect Earth from asteroid threats, was given authority to launch its most advanced craft, the TDS Horizon. It was a warship in name, but its main purpose was exploration and defense against unknown dangers from space debris. Now it had a new mission: follow the signal to its source and make first contact if possible. The construction of Horizon had taken more than a decade. It was humanity's most advanced creation, powered by a fusion core, protected by energy shields, and equipped with long-range communication systems capable of sending data across the solar system. It carried scientists, engineers, and a small crew trained for every possible scenario. When the news finally reached the public, the reaction was electric. Across the world, people gathered in front of screens to watch live coverage of the mission. Every nation contributed in some way, sending technology, supplies, or specialists. It was the first time humanity truly acted as one species under one goal. Launch day came quietly but powerfully. The Horizon stood on its platform at the orbital dock, glinting in the sunlight above Earth. The crew moved through the ship's corridors, checking every system one last time. They knew this mission could define the future of the human race. As countdown began, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. From small towns to major cities, people stopped what they were doing to listen. The commander's calm voice echoed through the control room as he gave the final authorization. Engines ignited with a low, steady rumble that shook the dock. Slowly, the ship began to rise, leaving behind the blue curve of Earth and heading into the silent black. Within hours, Horizon cleared the Moon's orbit and accelerated toward the outer planets. For the first time, a human-built vessel was going to the very edge of the solar system, not just to explore, but to meet something that might be waiting. Days turned into weeks as the ship traveled through space. The crew followed the faint trail of the alien signal, adjusting their course based on the data Earth continued to send. There was tension among them, but also a deep sense of unity. They weren't representing a single country. They were representing every person alive on Earth. Inside the ship, life followed a calm routine. Scientists monitored instruments and analyzed data in shifts. Engineers checked the fusion core, making sure it ran smoothly. In the observation deck, some of the crew often gathered to watch the stars drift by. Out here, the universe looked endless and peaceful, yet filled with mystery. Occasionally, Earth sent them messages of encouragement, short updates, cheers from school children, greetings from families, and hopes from people who stayed awake at night to track the mission. It reminded everyone aboard that they carried the hearts of billions with them. But the deeper horizon went, the more unusual readings appeared. The alien signal was growing stronger, clearer. It now included bursts of light in multiple frequencies, as though the source was responding to their approach. The crew didn't know whether it was a welcome or a warning. At one point, the communications officer noticed something strange. Between the repeating pulses of the alien signal, there were small gaps, tiny pauses that seemed deliberate. When translated into sound, they almost formed a rhythm like breathing or speech. The scientists tried to decode it, but it remained beyond their understanding. The commander decided to slow the ship's speed and maintain a safe distance from the signal's source. They didn't want to seem aggressive or reckless. Every move was carefully logged and shared with Earth in real time. Humanity's first meeting with another intelligent species could not afford a mistake. As the ship neared the outer boundary of the solar system, the stars seemed sharper and colder. Communication with Earth began to lag because of the distance, and each message took hours to travel. The crew was becoming truly alone in the darkness. Then, one morning cycle, the main scanner detected an object ahead. It wasn't a natural rock or ice fragment. It had a shape smooth and symmetrical. At first, it looked like a reflection of light. But as they zoomed in, the image became clear. Floating silently near the edge of the Kuiper Belt was a massive structure. It glowed faintly like a living thing breathing in the dark. It had no sharp edges, no visible engines, and its surface pulsed with energy patterns. No human eyes had ever seen anything like it. For a long moment, no one on the ship spoke. The data came in slowly. Composition unknown, movement minimal, energy output stable. Whatever it was not from Earth. The realization spread through the ship like a wave of quiet awe. Humanity had found something, someone beyond its world. The crew began preparing the first contact protocols. Cameras recorded everything, and scientists worked to establish communication channels. The moment was heavy with both fear and wonder. Humanity had dreamed of this for centuries, but now that it was real, no one knew what would happen next. Back on Earth, Mission Control watched every update with growing excitement and nervous silence. Across continents, billions of people tuned in to follow the event. The question that echoed in every heart was simple yet overwhelming. Who were they, and why were they here? And as Horizon drifted closer to that glowing ship in the endless dark, the signal pulsed again, brighter, faster, and unmistakably directed toward them. It was no longer just a transmission. It was a reply. As the Horizon glided closer to the strange glowing craft, the entire crew felt a mixture of fear and amazement. For days they had followed the signal, and now they were finally seeing what had sent it. It was unlike anything human imagination had ever drawn. The alien ship floated silently in the darkness, surrounded by a faint blue mist that shimmered like starlight caught in water. Its surface didn't look metallic like Earth ships. It seemed soft, almost alive, with slow-moving lights crawling across its curves. Sometimes those lights pulsed in steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Every few seconds, one section of the craft opened slightly, releasing thin beams of light that spread like gentle waves before fading away. Inside Horizon, the crew worked quietly, each person focused on their station. The communications officer kept adjusting frequencies, hoping to find a pattern or a voice in the static. The ship's scientists studied the readings, trying to understand the strange energy that came from the alien vessel. Every result brought more questions. No one could tell whether the other ship was moving or just waiting. It didn't drift like debris or orbit like a satellite. It stayed perfectly still, as if it had chosen that place for a reason. The commander gave an order to stop the engines and maintain position. The two ships now faced each other across a stretch of space that was completely silent. There was no wind, no sound, just the faint hum of the Horizon's power systems and the slow pulse of the alien craft's lights. Back on Earth, Mission Control received the live feed with a 20-hour delay. Even with the gap, billions of people were glued to their screens. The image of the alien ship became the most watched moment in human history. Some people cried, some prayed, and others simply stared in silence. For the first time, every person on Earth was looking at the same thing, proof that humanity was not alone. On board Horizon, the crew began their first attempt to communicate. They started with simple signals, light flashes in a repeating pattern that represented numbers. 1 flash, pause. 2 flashes, pause. Then 3. A clear message showing they understood mathematics, the universal language of logic. At first, there was no response. Minutes passed. The alien ship remained still. Then slowly, one of its glowing lines brightened and blinked. Once, twice, 3 times. The same pattern. The control room erupted in quiet cheers. It wasn't loud or wild, but filled with a deep emotional relief. The aliens had replied. Humanity had made first contact. The communication team continued the exchange, sending more complex patterns. They tried symbols for distance, time, and direction. The alien ship responded to some, ignored others, as if it was trying to understand what the humans meant. The two sides were talking, not with words, but with light and rhythm. After several hours, the alien ship did something unexpected. Its structure shifted slightly, like a flower opening in slow motion. From the center, a soft beam of white light stretched toward Horizon. It didn't hit the ship, but stopped a few hundred meters away, forming a glowing sphere in the middle of space. The humans stared at it, uncertain what to do. The sphere looked like a floating window of light shimmering gently. Scanners couldn't detect any threat. It wasn't energy in any known form. It seemed more like an invitation. The commander gave the order to approach carefully. The Horizon moved forward at minimum speed, inching closer until the beam filled their main display. Then something extraordinary happened. The light began to project images, not onto a screen, but directly into space. At first, they were blurry shapes. Then slowly they became clear. The humans saw a planet surrounded by 3 moons, oceans the color of green glass, and tall silver structures along the coastline. It was beautiful and peaceful. The images looked like a message, perhaps showing where the visitors had come from. The scientists started recording everything, trying to decode any symbols or hidden data. They believed the aliens were showing their home, their civilization, maybe even a sign of peace. But as the images continued, they changed. The next one showed what looked like fleets of ships moving through space, large and glowing, with beams stretching between them. Some thought it was art. Others thought it was a warning or a story of their power. No one could be sure. Then the images stopped suddenly. The beam disappeared and the alien ship went dark, all lights fading at once. The sudden silence felt heavier than before. Hold position, the commander ordered. The crew waited, every screen watching for any sign of activity. Minutes passed, then hours. Still nothing. It was as if the alien craft had shut down completely. Back on Earth, scientists argued about what had happened. Some believed the aliens had finished their message and gone into rest mode. Others feared it meant something was wrong, that the aliens had misread humanity's signals. The tension grew. The Horizon had to decide whether to approach the alien ship or keep waiting. The crew debated carefully. They had strict instructions not to provoke or intrude. Finally, they agreed to send one more signal, a simple one of light, slow and peaceful, repeating a universal message. We come in peace. For several long minutes, there was no reaction. Then the alien ship came back to life. Its surface glowed again, brighter than before, but this time in sharp patterns that looked less calm. The readings on the Horizon scanners began to spike. Unknown waves of energy rippled through the vacuum. The humans felt their hearts pound. Something had changed. The communication officer shouted a warning. An energy field was forming around the alien ship, growing fast. It wasn't an attack, but it wasn't passive either. It was as if the ship was testing them, scanning every part of Horizon and its crew. Lights flickered. Instruments struggled to adjust to the flood of strange frequencies. The engineers worked quickly, trying to stabilize the systems. They managed to hold steady, but everyone could feel it. The aliens were studying them now, just as humans had studied the signal. The scanning continued for almost an hour before finally fading. Then once again the alien ship fell silent. The crew exchanged nervous glances. They didn't know whether they had passed a test or triggered caution. The commander decided not to move closer. Instead, they sent one final signal, this time a visual of Earth. The ship's projection system displayed a rotating blue planet with a bright sun in the background. Home. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one single pulse of light came from the alien vessel, slow and steady, just one. It was impossible to know what it meant, but somehow the crew felt it wasn't a threat. It felt like acknowledgement. As the two ships drifted quietly in the darkness, the humans realized how extraordinary this moment truly was. They were no longer the only intelligent beings in the universe. Somewhere across the stars, others were watching, thinking, and feeling just as they did. On Earth, news of the first exchange reached the public. People celebrated, cried, and prayed. There were endless debates about what the aliens wanted, but one thing was clear: humanity had finally touched the unknown. For the Horizon's crew, it wasn't about politics or history. It was personal. They had seen something alive, intelligent, and far beyond anything they could imagine. The faces of the crew were lit by the glow of their screens, reflecting the distant shimmer of the alien ship. None of them spoke for a while. They didn't need to. They all knew that from this point onward, nothing on Earth would ever be the same again. And somewhere beyond the dark, the alien ship slowly turned as if watching them one last time, before drifting deeper into the void. Its signal grew softer, fading into the endless blackness. But even as the light vanished, every person aboard Horizon felt the same quiet realization. This was not the end. It was the beginning of something far greater than anyone had ever dreamed. The Horizon drifted in silence near the edge of the solar system. For days, the alien ship had remained motionless, its lights fading in and out like a heartbeat. The human crew had done everything possible to show peaceful intentions, sending calm signals, mathematical patterns, even a projection of Earth. But there was no clear answer. Each hour felt longer than the last. The crew tried to rest, but sleep came slowly. The stars outside were beautiful but distant, and the sense of being watched by something so unknown never really went away. They weren't afraid of the dark anymore. They were afraid of what might be inside it. Then one day the silence broke. It started as a low vibration that spread through Horizon's hull. The scanners lit up instantly, detecting an energy surge coming from the alien vessel. At first the readings made no sense. Power levels far higher than before, waves forming and disappearing in fractions of a second. The communications team checked for messages but found none. Whatever was happening, it wasn't another light exchange. The alien ship suddenly released a bright pulse that washed across space. It wasn't a weapon, but it hit Horizon's shield with enough force to shake the ship. Systems flickered for a moment, then stabilized. The energy field surrounding Horizon absorbed the impact, leaving only a shimmering glow. Inside the control room, tension filled the air. The commander stayed calm, giving quiet orders. "Hold position." No response yet. The crew followed without hesitation. They didn't want to fire, didn't want to do anything that might seem hostile. But then another pulse came, stronger this time. It wasn't aimed to destroy. It looked like the alien ship was scanning them again, more aggressively, perhaps thinking the humans were a threat. The science officer quickly analyzed the readings and came to a chilling conclusion. The aliens might be mistaking Horizon's defensive energy shield as a weapon. The ship's shields had been active since launch, a standard safety measure against debris and radiation. But from the alien point of view, that glowing barrier could look like an aggressive stance. What if they thought humanity was preparing for an attack? The crew sent another peaceful signal, flashing calm light patterns, but the alien vessel didn't respond. Instead, its outer surface began to shift, panels moving, energy waves rippling across its structure. The crew didn't know whether it was charging power or trying to communicate in a way they couldn't understand. For a few long moments, space was alive with strange lights. The humans watched in silence, their hearts racing. Then, without warning, the alien ship released another burst. This one hit Horizon's shield directly, brighter and faster than before. Alarms blared as systems overloaded for a second. Automatic defense systems activated on their own, as they were programmed to do in case of danger. The ship's sensors responded with a protective pulse of energy, non-lethal, just enough to neutralize incoming waves. It wasn't an attack, but in the cold language of machines, it might have looked like one. The two ships exchanged flashes of light, short bursts of invisible energy colliding between them. It was not war, not violence, but a misunderstanding of intent. Two species trying to talk, each using tools the other couldn't read. After a few tense seconds, everything went still again. The alien ship's lights dimmed, its surface returning to calm. Horizon lowered its defense systems to show peace. Inside, the crew took deep breaths, their hands trembling from the rush of adrenaline. No one spoke for a long time. They all understood how close they had come to disaster. One wrong decision, one misunderstanding, and history could have taken a much darker path. Finally, the commander ordered a full systems check. Nothing was badly damaged. The shields had held perfectly, but the crew felt something deeper, an ache of sadness. They hadn't wanted to fight. They had wanted to understand. The scientists began reviewing the data from the encounter. They noticed something fascinating. The alien ship's energy readings had changed during the event. The frequency of its pulses now matched parts of the signal originally sent to Earth weeks ago. It was as if the aliens were trying to re-establish communication, to correct what had gone wrong. The humans decided to try again. Using the same light patterns as before, they sent another signal. Slow, steady, showing simple numbers, calm rhythms. This time they added a new element, a pattern that represented harmony, balance, and peace. They waited. 10 minutes passed. Nothing. Then 20. The crew began to think maybe the aliens had decided to leave or shut down completely. But then suddenly the alien ship came to life once more. Its lights shimmered in a soft pattern, one long pulse, two short, one long again. It was the exact mirror of Horizon's peace signal. The entire crew erupted in relief. Smiles replaced the fear on their faces. It wasn't a full conversation, but it was enough. The aliens had understood. The misunderstanding had been resolved. For the next few hours, both ships exchanged gentle light patterns. Slow, thoughtful, almost like two beings breathing in sync. The energy between them felt calmer, even beautiful. For the first time, both sides seemed to realize they were not enemies. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the delayed transmission from Horizon reached mission control. Scientists, leaders, and ordinary people watched in awe. The story spread across every news channel. Humanity had faced its first alien misunderstanding and survived it peacefully. People wept with relief. In schools, children drew pictures of glowing ships in space. Artists painted the moment two civilizations met. The event became more than just science, it became hope. Hope that even across the vast silence of space, understanding was possible. But for those aboard Horizon, the experience left a deep mark. Each crew member realized how fragile peace could be, how easily fear and confusion could turn into something dangerous. They spoke quietly about how small humanity still was in the grand scale of the universe, and how powerful empathy could be, even across species. Later that cycle, when the ship entered rest mode, some of the crew gathered near the observation window. Outside, the alien ship still floated in the distance, glowing softly against the dark backdrop of stars. It looked peaceful again, almost gentle. One of the technicians whispered that maybe the aliens had never meant harm at all. Maybe they had just been scared too. That thought stayed with everyone. For all the talk of technology and science, it was that simple human feeling, fear, that had almost caused disaster. Now, as both ships drifted quietly near the outer rim of the solar system, there was a new kind of silence between them. Not the silence of hostility, but the silence of two beings trying to understand each other. The Horizon's communication system recorded every pulse, every pattern, every flicker of alien light, hoping to decode meaning from them. They were learning that contact wasn't about one side speaking. It was about both sides learning to listen. Hours turned into a full day, and both ships stayed motionless. Then slowly, the alien ship began to rotate, its front turning slightly toward a new direction, outward, toward the stars beyond the solar system. Was it leaving? The crew didn't know. They watched in silence as its light grew brighter, almost like a farewell. One last pulse of light crossed the dark space between them, a long, soft wave that faded gently into the void. The alien ship began to move, slowly at first, then faster. Within minutes, it disappeared into the distance, leaving only faint ripples of energy behind. The crew of Horizon sat quietly, staring at the empty space where it had been. They didn't feel sadness exactly, more a deep sense of wonder. They had met another intelligence, survived a dangerous misunderstanding, and ended in peace. It was something to be proud of, something that would be told for generations. The commander sent one final message to Earth. Contact made. Misunderstanding resolved. Humanity stands in peace. When that message reached Earth hours later, it was met with cheers, tears, and endless relief. For the first time, humanity had faced the unknown not with fear, but with patience and heart. As Horizon prepared for the journey back, the crew gazed out into the dark, wondering what other civilizations might be waiting beyond the stars, and whether the ones they had met would ever return. And somewhere, deep in the endless black, a faint light flickered once like a wave goodbye. The alien ship had disappeared into the darkness days ago, but the feeling of its presence still lingered aboard Horizon. Even though there was no more contact, no more glowing lights or pulses, everyone could sense that something had changed forever. The stars looked different now. The silence of space didn't feel empty anymore. It felt alive. The crew continued to study the data from the encounter. Every pulse of light, every energy wave, every signal had been recorded in perfect detail. They replayed the transmissions over and over again, searching for patterns. Sometimes when they slowed the recordings, they noticed something new, a subtle rhythm or a hidden frequency. It was almost like a whisper in the dark, too faint to hear but too deliberate to be random. After several days of work, one of the scientists noticed a strange repetition hidden inside the alien signal. It wasn't part of the main pattern, but buried deep beneath it as if layered intentionally. When they isolated it and played it back through the communication system, it produced a low hum that rose and fell in smooth waves. It sounded almost like breathing. That discovery caught everyone's attention. The sound was not mechanical. It felt organic. The crew wondered if it was a kind of language or an emotional signal, maybe a message that said something beyond words. They began decoding it carefully, comparing it with mathematical patterns, rhythm intervals, and even audio translations. After long hours of work, they found something incredible. The hidden signal wasn't just sound, it contained data. When they visualized it on their main display, a pattern of symbols appeared, complex, elegant, and unfamiliar. But among them were repeating shapes that matched the earlier light messages. The aliens had left them something before leaving, something meant to be discovered later. The crew spent days trying to interpret the new data. Every hour brought small progress, like solving a puzzle that revealed more of itself with patience. Slowly, a clearer picture began to form. The symbols were coordinates, points in space, and next to each point was a symbol that seemed to represent an energy source or star system. At first, the humans thought it was a map, but soon they realized it was more than that. It was a record, a network of places across the galaxy. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. It was as if the aliens had shared a glimpse of the larger universe, showing where other civilizations might exist. Humanity had always wondered whether life existed elsewhere. Now they had a map suggesting that it did. The ship's crew stared at the display in awe. Some were speechless. Others whispered softly, as if afraid to disturb the moment. For so long, humanity had believed it was small, alone in the vastness of space. But this changed everything. They sent the discovery back to Earth through encrypted transmission. It would take hours to reach, but when it did, the world would never be the same. As the crew waited for Earth's reply, they gathered in the observation chamber. The stars stretched endlessly before them, glowing like scattered diamonds. No one spoke for a while. Each person was lost in thought, imagining what those distant points on the map might hold. Worlds full of life, civilizations older than humanity, or others just beginning to look at the stars like Earth once had. Finally, the commander broke the silence. He spoke softly, but every word carried weight. Maybe they weren't just showing us where they came from, he said. Maybe they were showing us what's waiting for us out there. That thought filled the room with quiet wonder. It wasn't fear anymore, it was curiosity, hope, and respect. The encounter had started with misunderstanding, but it had ended with something extraordinary, a bridge to the unknown. Hours later, a transmission arrived from Earth. The message was short but filled with emotion. The world was celebrating. Scientists, leaders, and ordinary people were calling the event humanity's greatest discovery. The alien message had been verified by multiple observatories, and the coordinates matched regions that Earth's telescopes had never explored.
Humanity had just been invited to look beyond its home. Soon, Earth's governments and research centers formed a new joint council, one dedicated to peaceful exploration beyond the solar system.
They called it the Terran Exploration Initiative. Its mission: to study the alien data, prepare for deeper space travel, and continue the search for understanding. The crew of Horizon became symbols of this new beginning. Their calm decision during the misunderstanding, their patience during uncertainty, and their courage to keep listening had prevented disaster and opened the door to something beautiful. Messages from Earth poured in, full of gratitude and emotion. Children sent drawings of the two ships meeting in the stars. Families gathered outside at night to watch the sky, pointing at constellations and wondering if the aliens were watching too. But aboard Horizon, the feeling was quieter, deeper. The crew didn't feel like heroes. They felt humbled. The more they learned, the smaller they realized they were in the endless expanse of the universe. And yet that smallness felt right. It meant they had something to grow into. Days later, while still analyzing the alien data, the communications officer noticed another hidden layer inside the transmission. It wasn't coordinates this time. It was a sequence of audio frequencies that didn't match any known system. When processed through the ship's decoder, it produced a pattern of tones that formed a melody, soft and slow. It wasn't random. It sounded intentional, like music. They listened to it for a long time, letting the gentle sounds fill the ship. It was hauntingly beautiful, with harmonies that seemed to echo through every corner of the cabin. It felt like emotion without words, sadness, wonder, and peace all at once. Someone quietly said it might be a farewell gift. The aliens had left behind a piece of themselves, not in technology but in something that could touch the heart. When the song ended, silence returned. But it wasn't empty. It was filled with quiet gratitude. The crew knew they had been part of something greater than themselves, something that connected all beings that dared to look up at the stars. In the following days, Horizon turned its course back toward Earth. The engines glowed faintly as the ship began its long journey home. Everyone on board took turns writing logs and messages for the people waiting below. They didn't want to just report data. They wanted to share what it felt like to meet another intelligence. One of the engineers wrote that the meeting had taught them a lesson bigger than science. "Understanding doesn't begin with technology," he wrote. "It begins with patience, kindness, and the will to listen." As Horizon crossed Neptune's orbit, Earth's sun grew brighter in the distance. Home was waiting. The journey back would take weeks, but no one complained. Every mile was filled with reflection. Every passing hour a reminder of what they had seen. When the ship finally neared the inner solar system, Mission Control sent them one last update. The alien melody they had shared was now being broadcast across Earth. People played it on radios, in schools, in homes, in cities. Some said it brought them peace. Others said it reminded them to look up more often. For the first time in history, the whole planet shared the same sound, the same feeling. The crew watched through their viewing window as the blue glow of Earth grew larger. They felt pride, relief, and a deep warmth in their hearts. The meeting with the aliens had not only changed science, it had changed humanity's spirit. They knew their story would be told for generations, but more importantly, they hoped it would inspire future explorers to go farther, to learn more and to meet others not with fear, but with wonder. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of human sight, among the distant stars and quiet nebulae, the alien ship traveled onward, its soft lights pulsing gently as it disappeared deeper into the galaxy. Maybe it carried stories of Earth too. Maybe it told others about the small blue planet where people reached out and listened. The universe was no longer silent. It had spoken, and humanity had finally answered with peace. When the Horizon finally entered Earth's orbit, the planet below shimmered like a jewel wrapped in blue light. The oceans reflected sunlight like polished glass, and the continents glowed faintly under a thin layer of white clouds. For the crew, the sight was almost overwhelming. After all the endless blackness of space, the colors of home felt alive in a way they had never noticed before. The communication link opened, and voices from Earth filled the cabin. There was cheering, laughter, even the sound of people crying with joy. The entire world had been waiting for this moment, the return of the first humans to make peaceful contact with an alien species. The commander took a deep breath before replying. His words were steady, but emotion filled his tone. "We are home," he said quietly. And across the world, people watching from cities, villages, and space centers repeated those same words. The landing took place in a wide open field, prepared months earlier. As the horizon descended, thousands of people stood watching from a safe distance. Cameras captured every second. The ship's engines flared softly, dust rose into the air, and then, with a final gentle hum, it touched down. The world erupted in celebration. When the hatch opened and the crew stepped out, they were greeted not by silence or ceremony, but by the sound of applause and music. Children waved flags with stars drawn on them. Scientists stood together, smiling through tears. Some people even carried flowers, offering them as symbols of peace. The commander looked around, astonished by the emotion of it all. He wasn't the kind of person who usually showed feelings in public, but in that moment he couldn't help but smile. Later that evening, as the sun set behind the landing site, a quiet gathering took place. The crew shared their experiences before an audience of world leaders, researchers, and ordinary people who had traveled from far away just to hear their story. They didn't talk much about fear or danger. Instead, they spoke about curiosity, patience, and the feeling of connection they had discovered in the unknown. They described the alien ship not as a threat, but as something mysterious and beautiful, an intelligence that had reached out without words. When they played the alien melody to the audience, the room fell completely silent. The haunting, gentle sound filled the air, soft and slow as if time itself had paused to listen. Some people closed their eyes. Others held hands. No one wanted to speak when it ended. The sound had touched something deep inside them, a reminder that understanding could exist even between worlds. In the weeks that followed, humanity entered a new chapter. Across nations, scientists worked together without rivalry. Countries that once competed now shared data freely. The alien coordinates were studied carefully, and new telescopes were built to look toward those regions of space. For the first time, humanity's focus was united on something larger than itself. The Horizon crew became ambassadors of this new spirit. They traveled across continents, visiting schools, universities, and observatories. Everywhere they went, people wanted to know what it felt like to see something not from Earth. One of the crew members said something that stayed with people for years. When we saw them, it wasn't like meeting strangers. It was like realizing the universe had been waiting for us to notice it. That simple sentence spread across the world. It appeared on posters, news channels, and even on walls of schools where children dreamed of becoming explorers. It became a symbol of hope. The alien melody was studied by musicians who turned it into symphonies and songs. It played during world events, festivals, and peace gatherings. The tune, once mysterious, became a reminder of what humanity had achieved. Not through power, but through understanding. But not everything changed instantly. There were still people who doubted the story, calling it luck or coincidence. Some said the aliens might return with less peaceful intentions. Others thought the encounter was a warning. Yet over time, most people began to see the truth. Fear had not guided humanity through this. It was curiosity, compassion, and calm that had saved them. Years passed, and the Horizon itself was placed in a museum built to honor the mission. Its metal surface was polished and preserved, and the observation window where the crew had first seen the alien ship became a place where visitors stood in silence, trying to imagine what it must have felt like. Children pressed their hands against the glass, eyes full of wonder. They whispered questions like, "Do you think they'll come back? Or do you think they're watching us right now?" And the guides would always smile and answer softly, "Maybe they are." In time, the Terran Exploration Initiative launched a new program, Project Dawn. Using the map the aliens had left behind, they prepared to send unmanned probes toward some of the closest coordinates. These probes carried messages in dozens of languages, along with the same melody the aliens had sent, encoded as light and sound. The message was simple. We are here. We come in peace. When the first probe left Earth's orbit, people around the world watched the live feed together. It wasn't just a scientific event, it was a symbol of faith in the unknown. Humanity was no longer looking at space with fear, but with wonder. Years turned into decades, and the story of Horizon became a legend, told to every new generation. History books described it as the day humanity truly joined the universe. The commander, now much older, often visited schools to talk to young students. He didn't wear medals or give speeches full of big words. He just told them what he had seen, the lights, the silence, and the message hidden in the stars. One day, while talking to a group of children, a small boy raised his hand and asked, "Were you scared when you first saw them?" The commander smiled. "Yes," he said, "but only for a moment. Because the next moment I realized they were scared too. That's how I knew we were more alike than different." The room stayed quiet after that. The children understood something deep even if they couldn't explain it. Back in the museum, the melody still played softly every hour. People would stop to listen, some for just a few seconds, others for minutes. It became part of Earth's identity, a sound that reminded everyone that they were part of something vast and connected. One night, years later, astronomers detected a faint signal coming from deep space. It was weak, almost hidden under layers of cosmic noise. At first they thought it was interference. But when they filtered it carefully, a familiar rhythm appeared, the same gentle pulse pattern the aliens had used long ago. It was faint, but it was there. The world held its breath as scientists confirmed it. Another message had arrived. It wasn't long or complex, just a few bursts of energy, a pause, then more bursts, forming a sequence that repeated 3 times. When decoded, the pattern revealed a simple meaning, almost poetic. We remember. It was enough to move an entire planet to silence. The signal faded quickly after that, but its impact stayed forever. Humanity realized that the aliens had not forgotten them. Somewhere, across unimaginable distances, another civilization remembered the meeting too. The news spread everywhere. People stepped outside that night to look up at the stars again. No matter where they lived, they felt connected, not just to each other, but to something far beyond. For the crew of Horizon, now scattered around the world, the message brought back every memory, the glow of alien lights, the soft sound of the melody, the feeling of standing before something infinite. They didn't need to meet again to understand what it meant. The universe had spoken once more, and this time it wasn't to teach or to warn. It was simply to say that they were not forgotten. As time moved forward, humanity continued to explore, but never with arrogance. Every mission carried the same lesson that had started it all, that real discovery begins not with conquest, but with listening. The story of Horizon remained one of the few that united people across cultures, beliefs, and nations. It reminded everyone that even in the endless cold of space, connection was possible, and so, under the same stars that had once seemed unreachable, people built observatories, spacecraft, and dreams, not to conquer, but to understand, and somewhere far away, the lights of another world flickered softly in reply.